So myself Priyatharshini, and I'm working as a software engineer 3 at PayPal, and I'm a certified MCT, so I'm part of the MCT program. About myself, let's just move on. So what we are going to discuss today, automating AKS, Azure Kubernetes services with Golang. So what we are going to cover, there are two things. So we will just host a Golang service into Kubernetes and Azure Golang SDK. So this is a new term for us because we have been using, maybe if you are using Azure, maybe you'll be provisioning a services using CLI or PowerShell or through Portal, or you're using ORM template, but most of us are not really using Azure Golang SDK. So what is the use of Golang SDK? How we can make use of it? So we'll see it in demo today. Okay. So what I'm going to cover today is why Golang, what is Golang, when to use Golang, and so we will see two demos. One is to deploy a Golang service into Kubernetes through Azure DevOps, and we will also see a demo to provision Azure services using the Golang SDK. This is also going to be hosted as a service in AKS, so we'll see that. Okay, why Golang? So when I started exploring Golang, this is what I felt, okay, what is this? So I started C, C++, and explored, VBA macros a little bit, and I did my course on PHP and .NET. So I felt like, okay, I have done, most of the language. I consider myself as a full stack developer. But when I came into the situation, maybe because of my work, to explore Golang, I felt like, what is this? Exactly the same. So we will see what is Golang first, and we will get our answer done at the end of the session. So what is Golang? So this is a young system programming language. It's similar to C, but it has a lots of features too. It's open source. It was launched by Google 2009 officially. So it was initially an internal language that they used, that was developed within Google, that now it's open source. The stable version of Golang was launched 2009. It's been almost 15 years, so we are using Golang. And today, Golang is one of the top 10 languages. It is within the top 10 language, so in India market. And this is one of the language which will give you a salary bump, to get, if you are planning to switch, and if you are a developer, then you can of course, explore Golang. And it is simple, fast, easy to learn. So I felt initially, I started exploring Golang, whether it is okay I can learn Golang, or whether will I be able to explore. So I did it. So I'm giving you the confidence. Definitely you can also do that. So it has lots of good features and richness of library. The one main important point, what you have to consider learning Golang is it's fast. And you have an easy compilation, and it supports garbage collection. And when I have to use Golang, so it primarily supports these areas. If you look at these areas, and if you notice all these points, if you go deep dive to the Golang, so you can do everything using the Golang. But there are alternative approaches. I can't say Golang is competing with Java, so Java holds its place already. But still, for these areas, if you want to build a cloud design and infrastructure, or you're building a real-time application, you don't know how much traffic hits you will come. Of course, you'll do the scaling, but still, your application which is running inside your scalable system, that should also be supporting, and that should be a lightweight. So this is one of the lightweight languages you can consider using for building an API, especially this is mainly used in the microservice, and then the real-time application, and for the network development, so Golang is primarily used. So these are the main areas we can consider using Golang. Is there an organization currently using Golang? So it's like I'm talking about some new languages companies are not using, right? So let's see what are the organizations that are currently using Golang. But before I go to the next slide, I want answer from someone of you. So do you know any organization currently in the market, or maybe booming organization using Golang? Do you know any organization which is already using Golang? Terraform. Okay. Okay. Any other answer? PayPal. Okay. Right. That's the correct answer. Then Google. Yeah, that's it. So Google cloud infrastructure, the backend is completely, developed using Golang. So you can see the enormous, it's absolutely fast if you are using the Golang SDK for building any GCP services or maybe provisioning the services too. Okay, let's go to the next slide and see what are the top companies using Golang. So we can see GitLab, Dropbox, Heroku. This is a cloud, application cloud you might be aware of. It provides PaaS as well as SaaS services, and SoundCloud, IBM, Google. So this is one of the heavy user of Golang. Of course, it developed the Golang, and MongoDB, Cloudflare, YouTube. So we know how YouTube was previously and how it is evolved, and what is the performance of YouTube. Previously, if you want to see something, so that will be keep on buffering. So now you can see how much fast or it's how much it is optimized. Intel, Mac, Firefox, Uber, SpaceX, Tesla. So SpaceX, they are building their UI itself with Golang. So that's the point we have to note down. And Facebook, Twitter, Netflix, and Docker. So these are the organizations primarily using Golang. So now there are lot more customers. Small scale organizations are using Golang primarily because of the advantages we saw. Other than that, so when you actually see it in live, so you will also see more good features of Golang. So out of this, I just took one example, which is a Uber use case, how Uber is using Golang in the backend system. So as you can see in the left-hand side, so this is the overall design of Uber. Like how, when there is a cab driver who want to know, okay, who is, want to book, or where is the customer. So, or on the same side, a rider who wants to check the availability of a person, the cab driver who is available. So this is the backend architecture of the Uber system. So you can see that the geofence. So the geofence architecture of the Golang is currently running as a microservice and which is using Golang. So this was built, the service architecture, what you're seeing on the right hand side, that is completely built using Golang, and that was built 2015. Before that, it was running in Node.js as a monolithic application that was running as a small, applications, and it was now turned to a single application. So they were using both Node.js as well as Java, so they combined both the functionalities because Golang itself has this feature, and of course it is fast too. So based on Uber experience, I've already given the link also. I will share the slides detail maybe at the end of the session, or I can share it through the GitHub also. So if you check this, the documentation, the official documentation of Uber, so their availability of the service, right, what they are offering through Golang, it is 99.99% of availability. It's highly scalable, and it provides a good performance to the end users too. So the another one, Netflix. So most of us use Netflix. So Netflix have lots of services too, and they are running their system in microservice, and they are using a lot of application, programming languages too. Mainly they use Java, and equivalent to that, now they are building their microservices using Golang as well. So they also open source some of the modules as well as the services that you can see on the right hand side. So they are open sourcing some of the packages. So if you check the open source packages for Golang that is built by Netflix is around 70. So one of them is used by widely, that is Chaos Monkey concept. So most of us might have heard that name. So you can actually go to this link and you can explore what is inside. So the Chaos Monkey, why it is famous, because it's mainly using the full integration with the Spinnaker. So that support AWS, Azure, all other private cloud as well. So this is a module Netflix itself open sourcing, as well as they are using within their internal system. So likewise, there are lots of customers using Golang. Okay, I can also share you those informations, but if I have to cover all the use cases, the time what they provided won't be sufficient for me. Okay, let me quickly go to the next one. So we'll focus on how we can efficiently use the Golang in Azure. So the Golang Top Frameworks as of 2022, this is what I've just listed. I have also given the statistics of total forks as well as the stars provided for each of the frameworks. So Golang have almost the number of frameworks. I don't have the exact count, but it has more than 40 plus frameworks. But the key frameworks or the top 5 frameworks I just listed over here. So Gin framework is a framework that helps for building a REST APIs that provides a very fast experience to the users. So there is a framework called Martini. So when we compare Martini with Gin, so that will provide you almost 40 times faster experience than Martini. So this Gin is the first one holding first place in the Golang framework, and Bigo. This is mainly for the users who still want to develop the MVC pattern, like the model view controller, they can go for Bigo. And Eco, this is another high performance if you want to build an enterprise as well as a secure application, because it in turn provide the support for the TLS certification. It has the support, I mean, by default it adds the TLS certification through the Let's Encrypt. And Kit, this is for enterprise which has the highest number. Maybe this can be used within a small scale organization or a bigger scale organization. They want to build their API system, so they can use this kit. And the last one, the first, fast HTTP. So the name itself says, if you want to build a, obviously a fast and zero latency applications, HTTP APIs, you can go with the fast HTTP. So these are the, top frameworks Golang which provides. Okay, how we can use Golang within Azure. So far we were discussing, okay, what is Golang? I hope you got a little info about Golang. Hoping so. If you have any questions, let's park it, or maybe if you want to ask, you can ask me. And so how this Golang is going to be related to my Azure services. So we are all talking about Azure, then why the Golang is coming into the picture. So Azure still provides support for the Golang. So these are the services in Azure which helps Go developer to build their application, host their application, and SLA or enterprise SLA that provided by Microsoft. So we can host our Go application as a web app in Azure App Service, or if you want to build it as a microservice or an API, we can host it in the managed Kubernetes service. Rather than hosting it in a Kubernetes, if you host it in Azure Kubernetes service, you will get, that is a managed cluster. You don't have to, you don't have to manage the master part of the Kubernetes, and you can also launch your application within virtual machine that will give you, option to save cast, and you can also interact with NoSQL as well as the SQL DB. And it can also talk to Azure Storage. So these are the services, and also it can have a capability to integrate with any system like CI/CD tools, DevOps, and we can use VS Code to develop it. And of course, most of the Go developers are primarily using VS Code for development activities. And this application can be monitored, and we can get the application level telemetry of Golang within the Azure system itself. Okay, so let's get started. So let's not wait anymore. So we can get started. So if you have your laptop, or maybe if you want to try it, you can just go and try. I mean, if you're new to Golang, if you want to see like how it works, you can just run the simple code. So just package. I mean, this is almost, looks similar to the C programming, but it won't store any, it don't have any dynamic memory collection. So you can see that, just 3 lines of code, that's it. Or you don't want to install anything in your local system, just go to Go Dev Play. So you can see there are some samples, and you can also try testing the code. Okay. So with that, let me move to the first demo at deploying a Golang application as a service on AKS. So in this demo, I'll just host my simple API to Kubernetes as a service. So I'll add 4 replicas. So I'll build it through DevOps. So by pushing an image to the container registry. So this is the flow. So I'll just push my code to GitHub through VS Code, and I have a pipeline already set up. So that will build an image for me through the container, and push the image to container registry, and that will launch a service in Kubernetes. So let's see that, how it works. So if you want to try, maybe if you already have your laptop, maybe you can just, okay, let me open this link also. I can share you this link. You can just scan this, and you can run it from your side as well. Yeah, let's see the demo. Hope everybody can see my VS Code screen, right? Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is a simple code I have. Let me just go to the repo. So if anybody interested to check this code part, I can share you the QR code. You can just scan it. You can also test this whenever you find time. You can try this out. So I'll just show, I'll deploy and show you the service now. Okay, so anyone want, okay, let me keep it for some time. Are we good? I hope everyone is with me, right? Okay, I don't get any response. All right. Okay, so this is my simple code. I have, so this is my simple API I just have written. So this is using the simple HTTP listener. So this is listening on port 3000. This is in my main function. So I have a router setup. So in this API example, I just have two simple API. That is one is home page and another one is say hello. And yeah, so the say hello, it will check whether there is a username provided. Then it will return the response. The home page, it will say, okay, now the awesome Golang application is ready to go. I'll say that awesome Golang application is running. Okay, I push my changes to the GitHub. Okay, so as soon as I push my changes, you can see the build is triggered. So where this is running, this is actually running in my DevOps CI pipeline, which I have already configured. So the CI configurations is there in the same repo itself. So you can also go and check. So Azure pipeline, so most of us, I'm assuming everyone knows the Azure pipeline that has a 2.0, which has the YAML configuration option. So compared to the legacy options, the YAML configuration is much more easier. So the configuration is in a YAML format. So if you are interested, you can just look into this, or you can simply take this YAML configuration and run your code. So make sure your container registry details is updated, because I have already built the container registry. I created my container registry and Kubernetes cluster. So if you want to know how to create a Kubernetes cluster, I can quickly show you how to create a Kubernetes cluster. And container registry also, you need to create a container registry and Kubernetes cluster. So beforehand, you are running this application, and specify that Kubernetes cluster as well as the container registry information to this YAML configuration I just showed you. Yeah, put that information over there. So container registry and then the Kubernetes details, and configure your pipeline. So to create a Kubernetes cluster from Azure portal, so you need to pass the cluster specification. So now Microsoft provided an option. So you can use the preset, whether you want to go for the standard or dev or the cost optimized one. So I just say, okay, cost optimized one. So provide a name for it and choose a resource group where you are going to create it. I just take some as an example. So AzConf demo test. I will just say, okay, manual. So one count should be fine for me. And node pool if you want to add more. Since I've specified this is cost optimized, this is also considered as a production one. Node pool and the access part, so how you want to access the Kubernetes, whether you want the local account created in the Kubernetes, so you can attach the service principal to that account, The other way, you can directly create a Azure AD application and configure it. So I'll just go with a local account and the network configurations. Either you can go with a KubeNet or Azure CNI. KubeNet is a default option that will have its own network configuration, and Azure CNI is basically Azure provided network configuration. This is only available within Azure. So if you are creating Kubernetes explicitly, so you don't see this option. So the use of Azure CNI is basically you can, sorry. Okay. So yeah, the use of the Azure CNI, basically we have option to provide our custom virtual network information. So here is the network information. I can pass my VNet, and then the subnet information, Docker bridge info. So you need to pass the DNS config. Basically that will create a DNS zone for you, because there are lots of configuration we have to do in the real time or maybe in the on-premises cluster configuration, but here you don't have to specify all of them because Azure will take care of all this. You just have to specify your network in terms of security. So if you want to have your network configured there, so the Azure CNI is the option. You can configure the network one, and you want to use a load balancer, you can use it. And if you don't want any public IP association, because by default Kubernetes will create a public load balancer, you don't want it, just enable private cluster. But for my case, I'm going to expose my application to the end users. So I'll say, okay, the network policy none, and yeah, and then the integration. So here is when you should have your container registry already created. So let me also create the container registry along with my cluster. So test ACR. So the reason why we are attaching the container registry to the cluster here, so it can automatically create a service principal and manage identity for the cluster, and it can integrate the container registry with the Kubernetes cluster. So whenever you are pushing any images, the Kubernetes cluster can easily take or pull the images from the specific container registry. You don't have to explicitly create a service principal, and you don't have to specify it here. So Azure monitoring, if you want to enable the monitoring, by default Microsoft provide the monitoring solution for the Kubernetes. It automatically take the metric, log informations of a Kubernetes cluster. If you enable it, it will automatically create a log native workspace. You can add it. And if you are planning to add any permission, like Kubernetes is going to interact with other services, you can enable this manage identity option. And so there are built-in policy set that is predefined for AKS cluster deployment in Azure portal. If you're interested to use that, or if you want to use that as a best practice, you can just go ahead and enable it. Okay, these are the property, you can enable it in the integration part. And so addition to that, if you want to add the CSI driver, you can add it, and there will be a managed resource group that will be automatically created. You want to customize the name, you can do it. I'll just leave as it is. So with the name, the default name, what it's going to be created. So yeah, once a Kubernetes cluster is created, so you can just take that YAML config, whatever I just added in the repo, you can use it, and you can create your new pipeline over there. So just go to the pipeline. I mean, if you have your DevOps account already opened, otherwise you can just go to dev.azure.com. If you have your valid Azure subscription, you can open your, or you can create your own organization as Azure DevOps, and you can create number of project and number of pipelines, and you can deploy whatever you want. And it's going to be a full stack soon, so that support other cloud integration as well, and you can integrate it with the other business applications. So you can see there is lots of options. You can connect it with the Datadog. So this is not only for the Azure services. So now we are mainly going to use the Azure services. I just say, okay, run an application. So you have option. I mean, these are the couple of options you have from where you can pull the code. So you can push the code to the Azure repo itself. So as you can see, this is the option. And the other option, you can get the code from GitHub, because GitHub is also, okay, GitHub is also a Microsoft product. And so if you have an enterprise account, GitHub enterprise account, so you can use the GitHub one. And from Git local, if you want to push the code, you can also use that. So in my case, I have my code in the Git, GitHub. So I'll just select it, and I choose my repo. Okay, this is my first Golang application, or whatever the application is, and what I'm going to do. So either you can configure it, or if you want to use the functionality or the task which is already there, you can use it. So now I'm going to deploy my Kubernetes, deploy my service to Kubernetes. So this is the pre-built template is available in the Azure DevOps. So you can just select it, and you can run your application. The application what I just showed you. So let me first run it locally and let's see what is the output we are getting. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so to run your Golang application, just navigate to the directory and just, so my code, the file name I just stored as a my Go app. So let me run it locally, go run app. Since it is running in port 3000, let me verify it is working. So we can see this is built now because the pipeline that I've already built, right? So that is completed now. Let me just go to the pipeline and show you. So the first Go app, so when it was executed last, so it was executed 9 minutes ago. So when I just push the code testing Golang app, so you can actually check the job log and what it did, right? So it built the image and it pushed to the container registry. So this is a pre-built template that is already there in DevOps. I just used it. And in the deploy phase, you can see I just defined the steps so that basically pull the image. So in the build stage, it push the image, and here you can see in the deploy state, it create the image, and so it deployed the service to the Kubernetes cluster as well. So you can see that, okay, this is the IP. You can actually go and test it. So yeah, the same application that is now running in Kubernetes as a service. I can also go back and show you. So let me just initiate it. Yeah. So yeah, this is application. This is currently running in the port 3000. So this is the cluster IP and this is the public IP that just we access. So this service just created through the, that was built through this Azure DevOps, and that is running as a service now. Okay, I think this is for the Kubernetes cluster deployment. Okay, I'll see that anyway. All right. So if I don't say anyone is trying, but if so far if you have any questions, let me know. So before we move to the Azure SDK part. All right. So as I have mentioned, okay. Yeah, as I have mentioned, Azure SDK, in Azure provides SDK for Golang as well. So we can use Golang SDK to provision Azure services as well. So currently, Microsoft have 100 plus main services and it has 1000 plus services already. I mean, Azure have those services, and not all the services have the Golang SDK today, but for the major Azure services, we have the Golang SDK, so we can make use of it. So the advantage of using the Azure Golang SDK, right, instead of Fortel or PowerShell or CLI, so it is enormously fast comparing to all these options we already have in the option today. And this is a demo I just planned for it. Yeah, I also have the repo information. I will just quickly show you that I've already built. The same process what I just showed you for the first Golang app, so the same way I've built. But in this, in this example, I have two services. The one is the UI, another one is the API part. So the API is built using Golang, and UI just for the user experience, I've created the UI with the Preact. And so we will be having two services running, and the UI services will be exposed to the end user. So basically this service, what it does, it create Azure services. So I've taken 4 services in example: virtual network, storage account, app service, and Cosmos DB. So these 4 services can be listed can be created as well as can be deleted using the Golang SDK. So instead of using the CLI or partial or the ARM template or API, so I have used Golang SDK in my example. So let me just go to the repo. Yeah, this is a code repo. So you can just check this one. And before I just run it and deploy it, I have this application already, deployed. So I will, okay, yeah. I will also share you that application which is currently deployed. So you can actually go ahead and try it because I don't have any, authentication or authorization enabled in this application. You can just go ahead and try create a storage account, virtual network, static app. Let me share you the QR code. So this is application built using that code I was just showing. So this backend of this application is completely built using the Golang API. So you can see the difference creating a service through portal and creating the virtual network through this application. So let me just quickly show you how to create a virtual network and how much time it takes. So I already have this 3 virtual network. So let me just delete one of them. That's it. So it got deleted. So compared to the portal experience, the Golang SDK call, which will be much more faster, even the creation is also the same. So let's just try create a virtual network for the same. So test vnet. Okay. So anyone want to try? Maybe you can try from your mobile also. Yeah, you can try to create or delete. Maybe you can just try create a VNet so that I can see okay how many of you actually try to create any resources. VNet, storage account, Cosmos DB. Does it work? Awesome. Yeah, I see lots of resources got created. Nice. So similar to this, you can try create a storage account. So of course, compared to the portal experience, we will get a faster creation, not only creation, update as well as the deletion experience. So the lifecycle management of any Azure resources we can still be able to achieve using Golang. So we have the SDK for most of the key services in Azure, as I said. So you can go through that document link which I'm going to share at the end of the session. So you can go through them and you can start exploring the Golang SDK, how it can be used in your organization if you're already using other options to provision the services to. Okay, so let me quickly go to the code part. So as I said that I have already committed, I'm assuming everybody already got that link. So you can fork it and you can see the demo. I have already committed the Azure pipeline YAML configuration. You just have to go to Azure pipeline option and just copy paste this YAML configuration, whatever I just provided. As I said, just change the service connection for your Docker registry. This is basically your container registry that you're going to create in the Azure portal. So create a container registry, create a Kubernetes cluster, specify those informations instead of the detail what I provided. So for my example, I just created the container registry. That name is AzDevConf AZR, and so this is this is again my project details. So you have to replace it with your DevOps project configurations or the GitHub folder what you have, right? So this is it has a two layers as I mentioned. So one is the web UI. So this is developed using Preact. Maybe you can go through that. So the main part I was talking about Golang SDK. So you can see this API part because this is exposed as an API in the backend. So you can directly make an API call to it, and you can run this API alone. You can make a call to this API using a Postman, or you can also create a Swagger document. You can run it also through Swagger. I think in the morning we saw example using a Swagger too. So you can also run the API directly, and this can be easily integrated with any UI system. So this is for the web app. So if you are creating a web app, so what additional things you have to do? You can just use the the client, Golang client. So static website is a Golang client, so which is being used. So you can just use it and specify whatever configurations you want. So likewise, we have the API. I mean, I just added only for the 4 services. You can extend it to whatever services you like or whatever services your organizations are using or you are interested to. So you can check them all. Okay, see these are the in the Golang SDKs information I just provided. You can also clone this info or repo. Considering the time, so we are not able to deploy it live, but the same thing what I just showed in the first Golang app. So the same one I just deployed. So I have the pipeline already created for the same as well. So the same configuration I just added. So note this link. You can try it out. Do let me know if you have any questions, or maybe I'll be available here only. Tomorrow also, if you have any questions related to this, you can feel free to ask. All right. So these are the references you can take. Okay. So these are the references. If you are interested or you want to explore the Golang SDK part more, you want to see more code in live. So you can take the repo informations here. I just listed some of the repo information. I mean that I have in my code repo. You can take the code references and let me know if you have any questions. And so these are the reference document how Azure is extending or support to the Golang SDK. Not only for the SDK, and for running application also you can use Golang. I'll just close the session with one point. So if you want to shine like a sun, you have to burn like a sun first. So people will see the shine outside, but nobody knows how how hard you tried inside to bring that better version of you. So always keep learning, because learning is the only thing that will help you to grow or go to the next level always. Thank you.